Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline is a man who is certainly on the radar of BYUSN. His name is Mark Durrant, former BYU basketballer, current BYU basketball radio analyst. Mark, nice to have you on the program, man. How's your morning going?
So far, so good. It's always a pleasure to be on with you guys. I love Jason, but is Jerem still on vacation? I mean, what's going on with that guy?
Jerem's on a cruise. He went to Cuba. We don't know if he's okay.
We're not. We can't. We're putting the odds on it at 60-40 that he is in some sort of cruise jail right now.
He was riding bikes.
Couldn't happen to a nicer person.
Yeah, I know. He was riding bikes with his Bahama shirt on through the streets of Havana. So at that point, I was like, I hope he comes back. Mark, BYU basketball, meanwhile, hey, they're in a good place as well. I don't know if they're Havana, Cuba, riding the streets on a bike feeling good, but second place in the West Coast Conference behind a dominant Gonzaga team feels pretty good, given that BYU finished the non-conference at 8-7. What do you think about BYU being a game and a half in second place right now?
Well, I'm pleasantly surprised, watching this team, particularly on the road in the preseason. I wasn't too optimistic about what they would be able to do in the conference, and the conference is better this year than it has been. So BYU struggled at times in the last few years when they've had good teams, and the other teams weren't that good. So I mean, it was a tall task, and I think to some extent still remains that way. That this week will be very difficult for BYU, but I'm very happy. I mean, if you're a BYU fan, you can certainly be disgruntled about just the state of the program in general, if you want to be that, in comparison to Gonzaga, and Gonzaga is just so much better than everybody right now. And you think, well, what BYU should be up there with them, but that's just not where it is right now. I mean, this is the team you have this year. And as far as this year's team and what they're doing, I think you can be very pleased as a fan and happy with how they're performing, and they're getting better, and guys are emerging as important contributors. And to be second place in this conference is not nothing. I mean, obviously Gonzaga, they're awesome. I mean, that's all you could say. And they're like a Duke or a Kansas in your conference. You just probably not going to beat them, and they're going to win the conference. But that doesn't mean you stop playing. I mean, you're trying to get better and be the best team you can be. And if that means second place, I think that's a worthy goal for BYU. And I'm really pleased with how they're playing right now.
Yeah, I can't say it enough. If you were to place Duke in the West Coast Conference, this is what would happen. That Gonzaga beat Duke this season. I can't think of a better way to explain it.
BYU, Mark, is in the midst of a terrific defensive run. Just over the last 3 games, the numbers BYU has given up, 59, 48, 49. What do you think has contributed to the defensive play, especially over the last 3 games?
Well, the first thing is, I mean, people think, okay, defense, just go out, guard your guy, and just that's how you play, and that's how you get good. And offenses, people think, well, that's more complex. You're running plays and things, but the defense it's pretty complex. And the way Dave Rose likes it, I mean, if you let's, for instance, if a guy gets beat baseline, then you have to have a big rotate, and then you have another weak side guard come in and show in front of that big, so they don't pass it in for him for a dunk. And then everybody needs to be rotating, and there's certain principles that you need to really understand and move as a team together. And so one of the reasons I think they're getting better is some of the younger guys are learning exactly what they need to do. And, Connor Harding, I think, is a good on-ball defender, is learning, the rotations, and Gavin is learning his rotations. And so I think that's one part, is that younger guys are figuring out, because if one guy is not on the same page, eventually, if you have a good team you're playing, they're going to find the weakness and exploit that. The other thing is, I think you're getting better players playing, and what I mean by that is, McKay Cannon has begun to start at the beginning of conference play, and I think since that time they've been better defensively. McKay is a bulldog out there, and he plays hard and has done a really nice job against some of the better guards in the conference and limiting them. And then you'd add in Nick Emery's reemergence. He's not overwhelmingly athletic defensively, but he's incredibly savvy and can get turnovers for you and steals and jump passing lanes. I think that helps. But obviously, the most important thing is having some help on the backside. And with Gavin Baxter back there, it's just made all the difference in the world. Whereas previously, if a team would beat you on the perimeter and a guard gets in the paint, it's a layup drill. And now it's, big guy's back there, and he's either going to alter the shot or block the shot or turn the guard away, and he's able to recover on the big man if there's a pass down there. And it helps Yoli quite a bit to not pick up fouls, and he doesn't have to worry so much about being the rim protector. And basically you've got two good shot blockers with long arms back there to make things difficult. So you don't get exposed as much on your individual defense when you get beat because you have some good rim protectors back there. Then you got better defenders out there, and then you've got younger guys kind of figuring it out, and you're playing together as a team. So that's a long-winded answer for that, but that's kind of what I'm seeing out there. And what they've done the last 3 games, holding teams under 50 and 60 points, they're not going to lose a lot of games in that situation because they're pretty good offensively. So that's really encouraging because guys, earlier in the season they were really, really bad, and teams are just going off on them. Weber and San Diego State. We go down the list, and we're seeing much, much less of that. And I think guys are kind of figuring it out and coming together as a team.
BYU basketball radio analyst Mark Durrant with us on BYU Sports Nation. The more that I look closely at it, this season BYU has thus far avoided the head-scratching West Coast Conference loss. And I don't know why that is, but it's a good sign. BYU's 3 losses have come at home to Gonzaga, at St. Mary's, and at San Francisco. And San Francisco is not your typical Dons team. Mark, why do you think it has changed thus far that BYU hasn't suffered that head-scratching setback in league play? Knock on wood.
I think you're getting some good leadership late in the games. I mean, it's not like BYU hasn't been in close games. For instance, just the other night against Pacific, they were down by 1 under 10 minutes. But I think late in the game, you're getting a really some good leadership from whether it's TJ or Tashir or Yoli or Luke Worthington the other night. Guys are coming in and buckling down, playing hard, and making the right plays. And I think in years past, I think they'd be in those games and it would get away from them. And you're not seeing that with this team. And that's certainly encouraging. I mean, one of the most important things on the road is, first of all, believing that you're going to win. And now they have a couple of wins under their belt to give them that confidence. And I was talking to Marty Haas after the game the other night, and we were talking about this upcoming road trip. And I'm like, yeah, I hope we can keep playing this way. And he's like, no, the guys can't think like that. It can't be, I hope we win. It's got to be, we're going to take care of business. This is our game. We're going to go out there and we're going to win this game. And it's not about hope. You have to have kind of a swagger, especially when you go on the road. But in short, I think late in the game, I think you've got really good players making good plays, and you've got some experience now with the juniors and seniors, and they're finding a way to get a win. And that says a lot about a team. In the close game, especially on the road, coming out with a win, that's big. And again, the real test, I think, for me will be this week because San Diego and LMU are really good, and they've got a good history against BYU when they're at home. And so this will be fun. I'm really excited about this week, and I hope what I'm seeing from this team will continue, and they'll get that type of play that they need to get a couple road wins.
So besides the 2 games this week, there's 5 games remaining for BYU before the conference tournament in Vegas. How will these 5 games define the season? What are your expectations for the Cougars over these final 5 games before Vegas?
Yeah, well, I think it's probably realistic. Obviously I want 2 wins, but a split this week would be acceptable to me. And then I think the big game will be the San Francisco game at home, if you're talking about a second-place finish. And then you've got Gonzaga on the road. We'll just kind of hope for a miracle there like we've gotten in years past. But I think if you lose 2 from here on out, you're going to take second in the conference, and that would be a really, really good finish. And that's what I'm hoping and expecting to see. And then maybe, this is all maybes and ifs and whats, but if you get that Monday game, you get the double bye, and you're in the semis, and you get a win there, and then you play Gonzaga, and who knows? It's a neutral court, and Chili's out, and maybe you have the game of your life, and that's your kind of ticket to the golden ticket to the NCAA tournament. I know that's far-fetched, but that's the road, and I'd like to see that. And I think it's certainly within reach, at least to get to that game, and then who knows what can happen in a championship game.
Mark Durrant with us on BYU Sports Nation. We appreciate the time, my friend. Look forward to hearing your call this week when BYU goes on that SoCal road trip. Hopefully you're coming back with a couple of W's.
Well, I hope I make it back, and I'm not stuck with Jerem out somewhere in Southern California, but I can think of worse places to be stuck than Southern California.
Yes.
This is true. Say hello to the Channel 4 news team for us when you're down there. Thanks, Mark. Okay.
See you guys.
Mark Durrant on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, your values, your timeline, your financial future.